What's up, everyone? My name's Alex, and I use he, him, his pronouns, or AMR's pronouns, and we are talking about how gender evolved for me. Specifically, I want to talk about how my views about my own gender have evolved since exploring my demi-boyhood, my demi-boy identity, whatever you want to call it. That has been the basis of this entire channel, was talking about me being a demi-guy way back when I was trying to conceptualize the idea of being part male and part something else. And I wanted to kind of talk about whether or not my views about my own gender have changed. Hope everyone is doing okay. It's really awkward getting back into the swing of things, recording in general, but also just introducing myself with my pronouns. That's not something I've ever done, except for like in very specific online spaces. So it's quite a new experience for me, and I hope that kind of works. I hope that that's okay to do for my videos, and that doesn't like turn people off from watching the content. I'm kind of normalizing presenting your pronouns along with your name because they kind of go hand in hand. That's literally what a pronoun is. It replaces your name in a sentence. So that's what I'm trying to do here, I guess. So since starting this channel, and before that, since coming out as a demi-boy, I've made a lot of new discoveries about my own gender and how I view it and how to give language to it, terminology, and just ways to navigate and explore my own gender. So that's what I wanted to talk about today. To recap, part male, part something else. That is the definition of demi-boy, but that is just for like newcomers, people who are sort of new to this kind of identity talk. That's what this series is for. I've been thinking that it's part male, part gender neutral. Gender neutral is very vague. Neutroi is another term that I've thought of. Neutral, as in like a neutral gender, troi, like a third gender. That's where that, I guess that idea comes from, where that word comes from. So some kind of gender neutral in there, but I'm not entirely sure because that's a very broad term. But that's the basics, how I describe being a demi-boy. Possibly something gendered that is not tied to malehood, which I think that's the definition of maverick, is like not male or female, but some gendered feeling. And it's not genderlessness either. There is no genderless aspect of me, I do not think. So that's also like other types of identities I've been considering as that like other part of the demi-boy label. And of course, just to kind of add to this like recap thing, watch the video that I did on layers of identity, where I pretty much drew up like a mental diagram of how my gender works, with masculinity being at the very core of it, in terms of like passing, and then like male related terminology and presentation being like outside of that, and then femininity, which is like femininity does not play a part in my gender, but it is an expression of my queerness. So that's, I guess, the overall look of what I'm dealing with gender-wise. That's how I've always seen it, is in layers or in parts that kind of work together to form one thing. So not multi-gendered, and not a fluid gender, I do not think. So let's talk about gender euphoria. What gives me gender euphoria? It is the opposite of gender dysphoria. So things that make me actually feel good in a gendered way. Things that make me feel like I am the gender that I am. Using he, him, his pronouns. Like that kind of ties into being able to pass as male because I'm a man. Like at the end of the day, that it's a broad term. People don't see man and woman as umbrella terms, but it absolutely is. Man is an umbrella term. Let's not like gloss that over at all. So at the end of the day, I am a man. It's just that I am a different kind of man than cis men are. Sometimes I use am heirs pronouns. Those are on the screen right there. They follow the same rule as they, them. Same spelling, same pronunciation, just, you know, without the th on them. Currently, I only use those pronouns online, and that's largely what people use to refer to me online. I guess when given binary pronouns and neo-pronouns, people in queer online spaces love to just use the neo-pronouns, which is nice. Like, that normalizes it a lot. Being seen as male, passability, you know, being able to be seen as a man in like any space that I'm in, that's another source of euphoria. Being seen as queer, this is something I've gone over a few times, but I kind of like to not repeat it, but bring the idea back. Especially if people are watching this video just on its own. I want all these videos to be accessible to everyone, and I want people to be able to watch a video anytime, anywhere. Like, start with any video at all with identity talk, and there's always going to be a recap and always kind of repeated ideas, just so that, like, I'm making sure that everyone is caught up no matter what. So, femininity being an expression of my queerness, it is the queer part of my identity. It doesn't play any part into, like, my gender. It doesn't affect my gender at all. It is just a way to say, I'm a man, but I'm presenting in a gender non-conforming way, in a very queer way. That's basically all that is a way to express the queer part of my identity. For me, I would love to do a video on queerness. I don't know how I would do an entire video, but talking about what does queer mean for me. For me, I've never seen my sexuality as queer. I've only seen my gender as queer. So that's something I could cover in another video, but that's the basics of that aspect of my identity. And also, like, I guess quantifying my gender in parts is also sort of a source of euphoria, because it makes it so much easier for me to explain. Like, I talked about layers, but also sometimes I talk percentages, mostly male, partly another type of gender. I'll call myself a non-binary man, genderqueer man. Sometimes I was kind of experimenting with that word, but genderqueer is pretty old. It predates non-binary, but I think it is what non-binary was before people like made a new word for that. I talk about being a demiboy or demi-guy just to like explain partial relation to the binary male experience, but having that terminology and being able to quantify it is another source of euphoria for me. Like, hey, like, I am mostly this, part that. I like being able to do that. That feels very validating that I have that language. So I've definitely been overthinking this. I'm holding my book up now. Hopefully that's okay. That's not in the shot. So, new labels to consider. I have talked about, I'm sitting way too far up. Really bad framing. I need to fix that. But I've done videos on male related terms or just gender labels in general that resonate with me, that I at least somewhat relate to. At this point I sort of have a gender hoard, which is a thing people do, I guess. I don't have to identify as every single label in my gender hoard, but I do have a little tiny hoarded pile of genders that I've been like looking into and learning about more and more, because I like learning about terms. But out of those, I do have actual terms that I have considered. So there is a subset of demiboy, being part male, called magiboy, which is, I don't know where the word comes from. I don't know. I could not find any kind of like history on the coining of that word, but it just means mostly male. There's Magigirl, Magi non-binary, and it just means that like the majority of your identity is male, female, non-binary, whichever. It is the opposite of Libra man, which is someone who's mostly agender and like the smaller part of the identity is male. But it's a lesser known label and it just sounds kind of weird. Even in like online queer spaces, I don't think a lot of people know what Magiboy, like Magigender is. But no, it's not spelled. It's spelled like magic. It's not spelled like majority. I know I used that word, but it's not even spelled like that. So it's like when I say like I'm a Magiboy, like it sounds like a xenogender that's tied with magic or like something fanciful or like fantastic, as in like fantasy. So it just doesn't feel right, but it fits. That's the thing that annoys me, is that like I don't like the word, but it does fit. Other identity, which I brought up earlier, was genderqueer. It's non-binary, but it feels like it pinpoints the queer part of my identity in a way that non-binary doesn't really. I'll still call myself a non-binary man. I think that is the most palatable and easy to understand thing. I know a lot of people are like, non-binary man, what does that mean? You can't be non-binary and a man. Like there is still that aspect, but I think fewer people like remember what genderqueer is. At least in the sense that like historically it was what non-binary is. Non-binary doesn't really seem to connect to that queer label as much. It doesn't insinuate queerness in the same way that genderqueer does. Genderqueer is kind of cool. It's like I have a queer gender. I have a gender that is experienced through a queer lens, and I like that. It's kind of too broad to stand on its own, so saying like genderqueer man makes more sense than just saying I'm genderqueer. Again, I mentioned this in a previous video, but I want to avoid people of assuming that they should be using ungendered and gender neutral terminology for me. I do not want to come off as like somebody who is like other, I guess, not a man or a woman. I'm kind of avoiding that. Like, it's still important that people remember that I'm a man. Just experiencing and exploring gender in a queer way. And then there is Demiflux, which I will be doing an entire video on because I think that it can be an entire video on its own. And it's literally just Demiflux is having a static part of your gender while part of it fluctuates. Like demiflux means part of it fluctuates. So being a demiflux man would mean being a man, just a static, non-fluctuating, non-fluid gender, and another part of it fluctuates because I know that I only have one static gender, man, but like maybe part of it fluctuates. I've always considered like, that mysterious other part. I've cycled through so many different identity labels to quantify that part, to give like some kind of label to it, but realized maybe my gender fluctuates between different experiences on that end of the identity, like that other part. But I've never been able to pin down that part of my identity otherwise. Like I've never been able to really explain what that part of my identity does, that part of my gender. So like that is another term, demiflux. I would just say demiflux boy, demiflux man, but it's also kind of a mouthful too. I could just say I'm demiflux because it just insinuates that I have one static gender or I have a static gender where part of it is fluctuating. So it kind of insinuates, but I want a term that encompasses being a man as well. I have coined some terms. I've coined some male-related terms. That's a big project I've been doing. I talked about the Gender Veer project. Gender Veer is the umbrella term for any male or male-related or male-aligned identity. Like anything like that goes under that umbrella, and I coined a bunch of new terms to go under that label. So I have like access to terms like that. I just haven't really like pinned one down that I want to start using. Nothing seems to really feel right just yet, but I'm definitely trying. I'm definitely like trying to figure out just something that fits right. And I guess that's the complication, is finding something that really encompasses everything. But I guess that's the power of making your own terminology, is that you can find something that fits perfectly because you made it yourself and it's your own gender. And maybe somebody out there, you know, found something that you created as a label that like also fits them. Like that's how this has always worked. I don't think people realize that. Like that's how non-binary and genderqueer came to be. That's how a lot of labels came to be. So closing statements, I'm always learning new things about myself, no matter what. Like there is no age limit to self-exploration, and gender's no different. I'm always discovering new things. I'm always questioning. I'm always coming up with language that fits the best for me. I mean, I don't need to find labels that fit so perfectly. I can just say demiboy, and then my experience with that is my own, and I don't have to share that, and I don't have to have the language for that, because even like demigender people, they all have different experiences with gender, especially that uniqueness in only partially identifying with a gender, or as a gender rather. Like that, like in itself, like you could find people with so many different backgrounds and so many different experiences with that. But I'm actually happy to be questioning. It leaves more room for exploration. I mean, sometimes I like not knowing, because then it encourages me to go out and start looking into new labels and new terminology. I learn a lot about other people that way, as well as about myself, and I learn more about labels that really fit. But I'm actually excited to see what else I might learn. I like the idea that there's something out there that I haven't learned yet, that I'll come across eventually. Usually I'm scrolling through the gender wiki or the non-binary wiki, and just like checking out terms, looking at like terms that kind of relate to one another, male related terminology and stuff, labels and all that. So yeah, I mean, that's pretty much it. The question of the week I have here is, how has gender evolved for you, and what have you discovered over time? Has it always been the same, or are you like constantly finding changes, constantly finding new terminology, labels, language that fits better for you? I mean, leave that in the comments, and I will be there to just kind of chat, talk about my own experiences, validate your experiences. That's pretty much what I do. I'm always responding to comments. I get notifications to my phone for new comments, and I'm always checking desktop to make sure that nothing got through the spam filter by accident. And I'm always like making sure I am talking, always keeping interaction between me and the viewer. Like, I think that's super important. And I mean, I've discovered that people are finding validation and informative content watching my videos. People are learning more about themselves. People are realizing like, oh, I never knew that, and that's super cool. I didn't know there were words for this. There's a lot of that I'm seeing in the comments, which is really endearing. I love it. And like, I just want to keep going with this and talking about anything really. But the focus, I guess, for this series is identity, my own identity. But I mean, eventually I'm going to branch out. Maybe I should also close out this video before the garbage truck makes it to the front of my house, because that's going to be very loud. But anyway, I am signing off for now. See you later.